What is one thing you are still angry about years after it happened? I'm still bitter and angry about my high school Spanish teacher giving me a bad grade on a poem assignment. I used a word she didn't know, but was a valid word. I checked in my dictionary. She initially accused me of cheating, and after I showed her my rough drafts and explained how I come by the unusual words I used, she then still gave me a D for the assignment. Fuck you, Miss L. I worked hard on that poem. Edit. The word was tenebroso, meaning dark gloomy. Sadly, no, I don't have the poem. This was 25 years ago. I was kicked out of a bar spelling bee for spelling a word correctly. The word was Lilliputian, like from Gulliver's Travels. I spelled it correctly. They had it without the double L. I showed them I was correct, and they still wouldn't let me back in the spelling bee. This was like 5 years ago. I'm still super bitter. Edit. I want to be clear. I was an adult, maybe like 27 years old. This was a fun event at a local bar. 17 years ago, 2 of my friends called up the girl they knew I thought was cute and threatened to essay her and beat up her boyfriend if he tried to intervene. This was first semester of freshman year of high school. Word obviously got around, but no one ever told me why I suddenly became the creepy weirdo kid who everyone avoided. It wasn't until junior year when I finally found out why. They laughed in my face as they told me it was them who did it. They thought it would be funny to pretend to be me and call up her up, someone who I knew was in a relationship and who I had never even spoken to, and threaten her and her boyfriend. I spent 3.5 years of high school alone on break, alone on lunch, begging my mom to drop me off and pick me up so I could avoid the bus, all because they thought it would be funny. I can forgive almost everyone but Eric and Mike. Fuck you, I will never forgive you. 37 years ago I was 5 and had spent 2 years saving up $10 worth of pennies. I used to count them 10 pennies in a pile. 10 piles is $1. Kept them in an empty coffee ground can. One day the jar was empty and we had pizza for dinner. She made me thank her boyfriend for the pizza. When my grandmother died, my grandfather was unable to talk or take care of himself. He had previous strokes. He was placed in a nursing home, which was nice. My aunt and uncle went through my grandparents' house and labels everything with their names and their kids' names. L that they wanted to keep and everything else as to get sold. Then sold the house dirt cheap, sold their new car dirt cheap, and got rid of everything ASAP. What they couldn't sell they threw away. My aunt and uncle were not hard up for money, but my family was. My grandma was my favorite person. I had to steal a few items to keep for myself so I could have something to remember them by. About 5 years later, after my grandpa passed, my aunt and uncle sued my dad because he was adopted, and by the state law he got one more than his siblings. They lost the suit. It's been over 20 years and I still hate them for how they acted like a bunch of fucking asshole entitled pricks and took anything I could get to remember my grandma. By the way, I'm cordial to them, but I will always hold this grudge. About 35 years ago, when I was a teenager, house was broken into. Detectives thought I did it as an inside job. My dad had me sit down with them for questioning. After laughing at the accusation, I realized they were serious and told them no and clammed up. After, I asked why my dad would put me in front of them with no warning that I was a suspect. Like, did he think it was me? He said, I think it could have been you. Like, WTF? Seriously? I never did anything illegal like that in my life for him to think that. Rocked my relationship him. Primary school, sports day. A bunch of guys I knew were bullying this kid by throwing his hat to each other. I joined the circle, got thrown the hat, and then walked forward, genuinely intending to give it back to the kid. He thought I was faking and punched me in the face. That's pretty understandable TBH, so I'm not mad about that. What I'm mad about is that a teacher sent us both to the office where we both got the same punishment of litter duty despite my friends backing me up that I never threw the hat, and the teacher who sent me to the office having never seen me throw the hat. To be clear, nobody else got sent. Not the kids who were doing it for ages, just the kid who was being bullied and the kid who tried to help him. Fuck you, Miss Wilson. Edit. Because so many people are posting similar stories, I've actually just finished my first week on the job as a teacher. It's high school grade 7-12, not primary, but still. A big part of how I deal with kids is based on the idea that I don't know everything and that they are not idiots. Seems to work pretty well so far. It makes me a little less angry knowing that some of today's teachers were yesterday's unjustly punished kids, so I hope it helps you all feel a little less shitty too. My grandmother blaming me for the nails in her tire. I was fucking 6 and she lives in the middle of nowhere. It was like 25 fucking years ago, and I will never forget the scolding I from her for it. Fucking psycho. Had a teacher in high school tell me my answers were wrong in a specific section of our workbook. He refused to help me figure out what I was doing wrong. Just kept saying it's wrong. Do it over. He marked all of my answers wrong in that section of the workbook. The following year I was reviewing for the certification exam and revisited those problems in the old workbook after having a better understanding of the problems. I got the same answers I had gotten before that were marked wrong. The guy just didn't like me and decided that I wasn't allowed a decent grade. Friend fell asleep at the wheel driving their Stent while helping me move. It was snowing and icy. Woke up to the beginning of getting sideswiped by a semi. Ended up crushing the passenger side of my car in which I and my pets were in. Threw us off an embankment over the guardrails and rolled 6 or 7 times according to the man who dragged me out of the car. Ended up losing my car, every possession I had. My pets were killed in the impact, put into a medical coma for brain swelling for a few days, etc. She was unscathed, not a scratch on her. Walked away just fine and told me how I acted while being traumatized and severely injured. Mourning my pets was embarrassing her. The destruction of Duckbill Rock, a beautiful natural rock formation in Oregon. Seriously, a bunch of stupid kids robbed humanity of such a beautiful natural formation, and it's been in my mind since it happened in 2016. I had the ultimate privilege of seeing it in person, and it's amazing, puts our humanity into perspective. Amazing. The vandals were never caught either. https://n.m.wikipedia.org Wiki.Duckbill formation. 20 years ago my dad got choked out by a detective because he requested a lawyer. Before he talked they grabbed him by the neck and pushed him against the wall. He ended up crushing my dad's esophagus, and it doesn't sit right in his throat anymore. He never got in trouble for it. Manager of the store I worked in got fired. As assistant I took over, but was never offered the job. No big deal. I held the position for 4 months. The new manager came in, and on the day he came in he went into a manager's meeting and was given a bonus check of several $1,000s for the 4 months I was in charge. That still pissed me off. Not getting any callbacks from detectives after my daughter died. The hospital telling me it was all in my head when I was in pure agony from heavy metal poisoning. It was a really toxic metal too, not a common one. In kindergarten we made busts of George Washington by making a cylinder out of construction paper. Mine was stolen by another kid, and I had to take his shitty one which had the face on the seam where the ends of the tube met. That was more than 50 years ago. Fuck you, Eric Pfeiffer. My parents never let me watch any media, play with toys of the era, or listen to certain radio stations. It made me completely unrelatable to my peers. I have a rare autoimmune disease. Long story short, my immune system attacks my blood vessels, which causes them to break in patches all over my body, and before we knew what it was, my doctor at the time just kept pumping me full of Reactine. I just went with it for a while because I didn't know what else to do, and it obviously wasn't working and should have been clear at that point that it wasn't an allergic reaction. Every time I went to see her when there were no changes, I got the same answer: take more Reactine. I finally snapped and asked her, so are you actually going to do something to help me or? And literally, all she said to me was just keep taking Reactine. That answered my question. I immediately got a new doctor. My little sister was in 3rd grade a few years after 9/11. One of her friends was teasing her about a boy she liked. She yelled out, "I'm gonna kill you." The teacher marched her to the office and demanded the principal call the police because my sister made a terrorist threat. The police came and interviewed my 8-year-old sister without any parents present because my parents were called after the police and couldn't get there as fast. My parents were pissed and removed us all from the school. We started a new school the following week. My little sister has a major fear of police to this day. No one is exactly sure that they asked her or told her. And no, we did not sue. My doctor outed me as sexually active as a teen to my folks. He said the fever I had might be syphilis. He had no reason to rush to that judgment. It was a non-STI infection. My father shooting himself in the head and finding out about it 8 hours later through a friend's status on Facebook. Not being left anything in his will, that got left to his wife, who is half the reason why he is dead. Also the way that I was treated at his funeral a month later. I was seated behind his wife's family. I didn't have anything to do with planning the funeral as I was born out of an affair, and his parents were bitter about that, so they had to bring that during the service. It took my partner at the time and my friend that came for support to stop me from walking out of that pathetic, pointless scoring funeral. I haven't spoken to any of my father's side of the family since, and this was back in 2016. No love lost there as I think they are disgraceful human beings. My high school tried to decrease my GPA and changed my grades to not make me valedictorian. They liked the other candidates more than me. I caught them, and then they gave everyone in the running a participation valedictorian award. In 5th grade I was determined to win best essay for the DARE program. I lost. In high school years later my classmate who won admitted that her dad wrote her essay. I'm still pissed. My moped got stolen on my birthday almost 4 years ago and I'm never gonna get over it. They cut the lock when it was parked in my condo's parking garage while 3 guards were on duty, and they weren't able to get any video at all even though there are cameras facing both exits. It was a style of moped they don't sell anymore due to law changes, so I can't get a brand new one even if I wanted. So now I ride a slow-ass shitty moped in the hopes that people won't try to steal it, because it's not as desirable. When I told my mom about me being SA when I was walking home, and she called me a liar. I was only 6-7 years old.